Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Gino Esman.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, Gino?
Doing good, man.
What do you do this week?
No, pulling some muscles in my back from the firewood, but that's that. It hurts right between me.
I think your life is pretty much your.
Yeah, I usually do 2 hours of hand splitting wood every morning. Usually get up there about 8 o'clock and then work till 10. Just good workout.
Nice. Well, as everybody sure see, we're here with our guest today in studio, which is a little bit different than normal. This is Chief Nick Sohyda. Welcome, Chief.
Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Great to be here.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
We really appreciate you being on. We're really excited about this. We know you're a wealth of information, and we're looking forward to getting into a lot of discussion with you about things.
Yeah, I'm glad you said.
It's cool to be here.
Yeah, this is awesome, man. I'm really
You
glad.
know, when you asked, I said instead of sitting behind a computer at home, I might as well be here.
Yeah,
absolutely,
Just around the table where we solve all the fire services problems.
Yeah, I like that.
I came up with a great idea. I think this is what we're going to go with. This is the bay table. We're going to call this the bay table. And people that I work with, and at least the departments I've worked in, the bay table usually sits between a couple of pieces of fire apparatus. It's usually the meeting point in the mornings between the on and off shifts that are working. And that's the reason I like to have you here, because that's where the real no nonsense conversations happen.
Right.
The kitchen table they do, but the bay table is when you really get
speak your
mind. You really get to
it's a little
find out. And you can get the vibe from the off-duty guys right away. You know what I mean?
What kind of moves the chief in today?
That, or what kind of moods the city in, really. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
So we're talking before the episode about that table thing, but Pleasant Hills, we have a beautiful day room, nice leather recliners, big screen TV, Xbox, the upstairs is air conditioned. Nobody goes upstairs. Everybody just sits in the bay and it's a cheap table. We got a plastic table and everybody just sort of sits around this plastic table in the bay.
You got to step up your game.
Yeah. We're talking about getting a nicer table now. I definitely think we should. So before we get any further into this, I want to play. So the episode is going to be about mergers, run cards, and plenty of other things I'm sure we're going to get into discussions about. But our executive producer, Chief Dan Heck, had some thoughts about the mergers. So I'm going to play a little video from Dan here to get us started.
To get out ahead of it and give my thoughts on mergers. I don't believe a merger in its simplest terms can solve most problems departments face. I don't think many mergers solve the deep-rooted issues causing our decline. If your department's in trouble, you have to ask why and then address those root causes. A good, stable, and efficient fire department has structure. It has structure and leadership. Many times the deficiencies come from the top. In a volunteer organization, you might have a fire chief that is only interested in one aspect of the department, himself. A good chief needs to direct the department in all aspects, exert his energy and influence towards structuring all important aspects of the department with other appropriate qualified people. You have to build the structure. Funding is so important. Grants, township support, and fire tax, fundraising by the department, private funding, they all need to be paramount in surviving the future that is coming fast. Recruitment, ongoing programs to bring in new blood, young, energetic blood. Know that over time there will be a full turnover of personnel lost to other opportunities. For me, that was people like Mark Grimm, Kurt Christofel, Tommy Benoit Jr., Chris Chiprich, Ryan Latner, many more young guys that we invested time and energy in. They have to do what's right for them. It's only natural. that's why it's important to have these programs to keep bringing in new blood. Retention certainly helps. Provide incentives other than money and coddling. I hate to use that term, but it's what it is a lot of times. Give them a workout room. If you have the wherewithal to have a live-in program, I know back in the day Monroeville was big on that. I think they still are. It goes a long way to keep people sticking around longer. Maybe get a grant for that and try to make that work for your department. Have an active kitchen, eat together. That builds the brotherhood. Recognition when earned, mental health prevention and assistance. Maybe give them an in-house educational media library, something to read, something to watch, just to keep learning, keep expanding that education. Training, relentless training in-house and accredited outside training is imperative to a well-structured, well-respected department. You have to have policy. You have to have policies in place promoting and maintaining a safe, respectable department. Respect is so important. You have to command respect at all costs. Once that's gone, it's a long road back, and I'm afraid that's where a lot of departments find themselves today. Morale, you have to teach the culture, keep it disciplined but fun, promote brotherhood, and be concerned about the individual's issues. In the fire department and in their personal life too. You have to know your people. You have to take care of your people. It's so important. So, I don't know, in my opinion, a merger with another department or more can solve some financial issues by eliminating the duplication of equipment and real estate. But one of those companies has to be a good, solid, stable, efficient company, willing to take on the unstructured department's issues and problems. With total cooperation by the inferior departments over time will result in a better, stronger, more efficient, qualified department ready to take on the next step in the evolution of the fire service. Again, in my opinion, that next step is a mostly paid or fully paid department. And I think that's the only way the fire service can get a handle on the rapidly declining issues plaguing our departments all over the region. So I appreciate you listening, and I'm looking forward to listening to the episode as well, just to see what other people think. Those are my thoughts. Doesn't mean they're right, but that's what they are. Thanks.
All right, so we're real quick before we get any farther, I just wanted to give a shout out to our segment sponsor, FireCam. If you haven't checked them out, they make helmet cams built for firefighters. They're tough as nails. They withstand the heat, and they're also sponsoring our giveaway for one of our first 500 subscribers to YouTube. We're going to be giving away helmets cam from FireCam. So make sure you go onto YouTube, like this video, subscribe to YouTube, get the alerts for the next episodes. We really appreciate if you subscribe. Really helps us out. I think we're about 250 somewhere around there subscribers right now. We're trying to get to 500 as soon as we can, so we can give this awesome camera away to one of those subscribers. And also go to one of our videos and just comment that you subscribe, so that way we don't miss your subscription. As I said, there's some types of privacy issues with YouTube for some reason on subscribing, so we're gonna make sure we get everybody entered to win that. But so yeah. Chief, what are your thoughts about what Chief Dan Heck said about some of the mergers there?
So
Before we go any further, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I tried to think of a great intro, and he's going to say anything, but you're here. You're here, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Nick Sohyda. I joined the fire service in 1985, which makes me, 35? But like many of you, older timers, fire department family. So my father was involved. Back then, you didn't have all these things to do and couldn't play on the computer all day. So you went to the firehouse and you worked. So I was a volunteer in Cecil Township for 14 years, got hired in Mount Lebanon in 1999 as a career lieutenant, kind of a dream of mine. Promoted to fire chief in 2007, kind of not a dream of mine. I didn't expect to be offered the job. I just wanted to get better at taking the test. And I really foresaw myself at this point in my career, maybe being a fire chief, but I retired from Mount Lebanon in August of 2024 after 25 years. I kind of knew I was planning on going, needed a change of pace. So I was retired for 3 weeks, and I went to work for Upper St. Clair Fire Department, where my title is fire service coordinator, but I'm pretty much in charge of training and marketing, social media, recruitment and retention, grants. And they let me drive a fire truck again. So I'm enjoying being a fireman. You really never lose that.
Yeah. I bet a lot less stressful.
And it is a lot less stressful. Don't tell the chief, but I
responsibilities.
have my feet on the desk, quite often now. So it's good.
So awesome. So let's get into mergers. So what are your thoughts of it? Just what Chief Dan Heck was saying about one thing is like, yeah, I don't think mergers are great, but I don't think they're the end all solution to every
No.
problem, because if you have two bad companies, they merge together, it's still a bad company.
Right. One thing I appreciate about the chief and during his time, and I think which made him a good chief, is he mentioned the challenges and the evolution of the fire service. And I think we need to understand that society is evolving every day. The fire service that doesn't evolve with society is probably going to not survive. And it's one of those fire departments that ends up in trouble that we're probably talking about mergers and consolidations, because they haven't done the right things to evolve with society. Even from a recruitment and retention standpoint, we can't expect them to do what they did 20 years ago. They don't have the time. So how do we make the most of their time? So the fire service, it needs to evolve. Mergers and consolidations are not the answer for everybody. They're not the end all be all, but they work well in several communities. I always thought that, I started doing consulting work probably in 2012, and the real danger to the volunteer fire service back then was a lack of volunteers. How do we really focus on volunteerism and recruitment, retention, and getting volunteers? Right. Do we look at staffing the firehouses with some type of stipend to provide a better response? Then in about 2020, this danger, COVID, what it kind of created, the cost of everything has become outrageous. So I think not only is the lack of volunteers a threat to the volunteer fire service, but the cost of everything has become as equal, if not a greater threat. As I talk to elected officials, honestly, I know they're not supporting the volunteer fire service near the way they should, but their concern is not only the lack of volunteers, but their real concern is money now. We can't afford to pay for a new fire truck. So someone's gonna have to figure that out.
And the slashing cuts, the cuts of the federal budget.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that's going to really play a big role in the safer grants, the apparatus grants.
And I kind of feel torn on that one. I know a lot of people don't want to go that money to go away. I've gotten a lot of those grants, but at the end of the day, it is really local government's responsibility. That's where fire protection lies. And so I really believe, even with the state grant, $15,000 a year, that's probably keeping a lot of departments alive that maybe shouldn't be alive, that maybe should have closed or merged or consolidated or shouldn't continue to function. So, I'm just not so sure how I feel about the funding, but I've worked in very wealthy communities, so I've been very fortunate. Money hasn't always been a big issue, where in some communities, I'm sure it's a much bigger concern. But, so when we talk about mergers and consolidations, there's really a little bit of a difference, and we use those terms interchangeably, but a merger is when one company kind of takes another company over. And so the first project that I did in Cambria County, there was a small volunteer department, and I give them a lot of credit. They knew that they weren't performing.
Sure.
Lack of membership, lack of money, just things weren't going well. And they're sitting right next door to a much wealthier, pretty progressive, very busy volunteer department at the time. And so the conversation started about merging those departments. So in a merger, one company takes over another. So that company dissolved its charter. It became a member of the existing department. So, that's kind of where the term merger. A consolidation differs in that if we were going to consolidate, let's say a good example right now is Baldwin Borough just finished their consolidating. They've eliminated those three companies and they've started a new entity. So in a consolidation, the old existing departments go away and it's a whole new entity. So everybody has buy-in to the new entity.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the difference between a merger and consolidation. So, if you're not performing well, are you in threat of getting taken over, or is it more voluntary where we're all working together to try to get to that consolidation?
So that's something we were talking about a little bit too, is I think like the Baldwin consolidation, Jefferson Hills consolidation, those to me were just no-brainers. There are multiple departments inside the same community. I think, get them consolidated and use your resources a lot more efficiently. Have you ever dealt with departments outside of community.
Yes. And
Consolidate
so the
emergency
first
management.
one I did, and I'm working on one right now, they're way trickier. So I agree with you to go back. It's much easier, and I think it makes perfect sense. Multiple organizations in a single township, to me, consolidation works. It's the tricky part when it's outside is figuring out the funding. These are already all funded by the borough or the township or whatever community they're in. So that makes it a lot easier from a funding standpoint to make that consolidation go. And the thing that I always find with multiple organizations in a single township or borough or community is that if you put yourself in an elected official's shoes, if I have 4 volunteer fire companies with different agendas, with different fire chiefs, with different presidents coming to me with different problems, wanting different things, it makes it very tricky as an elected official. And again, elected officials, they're part-timers. They don't know the fire service. They're changing all the time. I've seen elected officials play fire departments off one another, quite honestly, just so it would keep them away from getting into the agenda of the
The
elected
actual
official,
thing
which
that they want
which
to
had
do.
nothing to do with the fire service.
Right.
It makes perfect sense in those situations. Now, when you get outside, the difficulty would be, trying to think of an example. You might have a volunteer department that's well funded, and you're thinking, all right, if I start to look at that and try to figure out how to fund this, I'll take the wealthier department. I'll say, okay, you're getting $2 million. If I fund that per capita, that's $50 per capita. And then I look at the smaller department and do the same thing, and it's 25 per capita. Well, this is never even going to get off the ground unless this community comes to the 50 per capita. So that becomes the tricky part of how do you find a neutral funding stream. Now, that's one example. You can look at excess property value, the number of call volumes. There's a lot of different formulas, but the trick in that scenario is really funding, because everybody needs to contribute equally to the new organization, and finding out what equally can be a little difficult.
Well, we were speaking earlier too, and also with that merger or consolidation, you talked a little bit about fire apparatus and the duplication that we have in this area. From my understanding, we have more fire trucks in Allegheny County than the city of New York has.
Right. Yeah, the Connect study.
Yeah. And so, I just think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
What do you need 3 ladder trucks in 3 square miles or whatever?
Or everybody has 2 pumpers, and I get why you have 2 pumpers. One goes out of service, you need one. But in a consolidated organization, say there's 4 of us, could we share a pumper?
That's fair.
And now I'm not paying that. You're looking at $1 million for a pumper now, and that's probably a cheap one.
Yeah.
That's probably a cheap one, and then nothing fancy. So the price has gone through the roof, and where we're getting this money. So, generally what I've always done with my consolidations when talking about that is, because elected officials always want to know this, where are you going to save us money? My goal is never to save money. It's not to throw good money after bad. And so generally, if I had a community and I could eliminate a ladder truck, that's $2.2 million over 20 years, and a pumper that's $1 million over 20 years, I take that money now and invest it in people. Let's be honest. I think there's I don't know if it's fair to residents. You drive by, you see fire trucks in a fire station, and you think you have fire protection.
Absolutely.
Right? But if there's no people, you don't have anything. You got fire trucks in a fire station. You don't have a fire department. And so we have all this nice stuff. And if we're not staffing it, do I need 2 engines in a truck if I can't even staff those pieces of equipment? So if I can take that savings, better recruitment incentives, hey, you're going to get one of the biggest barriers I see to bringing people in is you tell them right away, you got to go to essentials. It's 180 hours now.
200 with the hazmat off.
Right. But if you say, hey, if you go to essentials and get it, I'm going to give you $1,800, or I'm going to give you $2,000. You get your firefighter 1. Now they're sitting there saying, all right, I might do this.
You did that in Mount Lebanon, right?
Right. There's some incentive for a
program,
safer grant. I always told people the story that if you're a young person, $2,000 is probably a lot. If you're older, you're married, you maybe take that home and go on vacation.
That's what I was thinking.
I do your Christmas club. I wouldn't tell my wife I had it, but that's me. That's me. I put it in my pocket. I'd give her $1,000 and go.
That's that longevity check once
Yeah,
a year
right.
you get that no one knows about. Yeah.
But so you can afford those types of things if you're not maybe doing some of those other things. So bringing people in the door. I love the staffing program that a lot of fire departments are trying to do now. I think we've evolved when Chief Eck talks about the evolution of the fire service. I think there are volunteers out there today that they just can't commit time whenever. They're not going to do it. But if you tell them, hey, we're going to schedule time, and I think people like to be structured.
Yeah.
If you come to the firehouse twice a week for 6 hours and do a shift, they're probably shaking their head. Yeah, I could do that. And you're going to reimburse me. And I have a known body on the apparatus, which is now going to allow the apparatus to get out the door faster. So I don't think the respond from home model is ever going to go away. But I think all departments need to consider, how do we merge these two between continuing to have the respond from home and continuing to allow.
That's a great point. I never thought of that. Like if you get, well, we've always had scheduled drills on Thursday nights
Right.
in Pleasant Hills, but that idea there, that concept of, hey, put yourself on the schedule, because like you said, in the evenings, every evening, you might be running around with your kids for a softball game, baseball game, but you just can't carry a pager and
Or I
take
get
an
up at 4
hour
a.m. to go to work
Right,
every
yeah, or
morning,
take-
and I can't get up in
Right.
the middle of the night.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great idea.
You actually did that well back in the day, probably in the 90s. I don't know if they still do this. Clarendon. Remember Clarendon used to
Clarendon had
schedule
they had a what's called Bugsy Bucks
Yeah.
back in it was
Yeah.
it was $50 for a 24-hour shift.
Yeah.
But you didn't get the money. The money went into your kitty so you could buy your own fire equipment.
Yeah.
So if you had enough,
You were earning something.
yeah, it may be enough to get a leather lid or
Right.
nice pair of boots or
Yeah.
But it was a successful program for a long time.
I guess we're pivoting a little bit into recruitment and retention, but I was actually thinking about this earlier today about some of the things that even Pleasant Hills has available to members. There's tax incentives in our borough. If you live in the borough, own property in the borough, you
Oh,
get a
there
tax
is?
incentive. Yeah. The county has a tax incentive now too. So if you own property in the county, you can get a tax incentive for that. There's the Fire Vest program.
Yeah, free college,
Kids could go to get an associate's degree at CCAC. We at Pleasant Hills, we offer a gym membership. Obviously, in our fire department, as I said before, we got a big screen TV, we got an Xbox, we got computers, we got
Right.
the internet.
Right.
But I bet I was thinking about this earlier. If I asked everybody in our fire department, did you join here because of any of those? I guarantee almost everyone would say no. That's not
Right.
why they're there. So I just don't know, like those things that we have available right now. I don't know if they're really attractive.
Well, I think they help keep people. I think once they're there and you tell them, like when I would interview people in Mount Lebanon, they didn't know the incentives we have. When I sat down and said, these are the, they'd already signed a paper. When I
Yeah.
said, these are the incentives, like, wow, I get all these incentives. So I don't know that they come for that. But, again, I don't want to get sidetracked neither on recruitment retention, but I think at least my experience has been in the communities I've worked. A lot of people spend their time trying to recruit young people, and we all like young people. I don't know that that's our target or just our target audience in many places. You see a lot of these kids they're pressure on to go to college and are involved in so many things. To me, the target audience is the 32, 35-year-old that just moved in, that bought a home, that owns property, that's not going anywhere.
Responsible.
Right. And you
Or
say,
more
what do we have to offer? That's one thing I ask volunteers every year. Why are you here? What keeps you here? When I was in Mount Lebanon, they said, hey, really white collar community, Upper St. Clair is the same way. Hey, I sit behind a desk all day. So I come here to get dirty, to get challenged, to do something else. Former military, I come here for the camaraderie and the teamwork that I'm missing. They have a former Navy SEAL over there. And, I'm asking him one day, why you come here? He's like, I've been out of the service for like 10 years. I'm home with my wife and 2 daughters and I'm losing my mind.
That's
awesome. I just need to get
I did
back.
hear there was a Navy, that's out of Navy SEAL,
and to get back with the guys. So I think we need to broaden what we're looking for. I mean, we've gotten a lot of members that are 40 years old. They're starting out late, but they end up being great members for 15 or 20 years. So looking at a broader membership of what you're trying to recruit, and then at the same time, marketing differently to them and telling them what you have to offer. So I've really tried to, when I market, tell them what we have to offer from teamwork, camaraderie, a challenge, those types of things that are kind of right here, maybe, that they're missing in their life that we have for you. Because, everybody watching this, so you guys know better, it's a family.
Absolutely.
It is the biggest family in the world. I say my fire service friends are incredible, and they're my family. So.
Right.
Yeah, and what we said, we pivoted to this, but on all honesty, if we could solve the recruitment retention issue, we wouldn't even talk about mergers.
Right.
Because if every department was
If everyone
Yeah.
was doing really
we wouldn't have to
well.
worry about mergers or consolidations. So,
Right. And when you talk about mergers, a lot of people look at the negatives of mergers and consolidations. What do I have to lose? One of the things that I hear, we're going to lose our identity. Well, I don't know that anybody should lose their identity. I mean, if I'm going to the community, who cares if you keep the name of your community on your truck, or, just like the city of Pittsburgh, they got Brighton Heights and
We have
Herrick,
our
and,
rigs, yeah.
it could still say Pleasant Hills. Who really cares what color the trucks are? I mean, those
As long as
are
they're red.
such minor
We
things.
talked about this last episode, as long as it's red.
As long as
He
they're
goes
red.
right, as long as they're red.
Well,
You know-
the only people, got a question for you, and I hear this brought up a lot at the bay table, and it's the idea of following the school district models in some of these communities. Have you ever done that? Have you ever
Right.
looked at that as
No, but who was fairly successful, and we never quite finished it, but and I'll just bring their name up. Because it was successful. The Fort Cherry Fire District and the Fort Cherry School District, McDonald, Midway, and Mount Pleasant Township, they've done that for 25 years. They call themselves the Fort Cherry Fire District. They work together. They do things together. They fundraise together. We just never got over the hump of making that a more formal organization or merging or consolidating it, but they really operate that way, train that way, and they were very successful. So that's another model that people have talked about that makes a little more sense, either by school district or these communities that have. I'll just use Baldwin's another easy one. 3 independent volunteer departments in one community. It's just easy to merge or consolidate those departments than it is going outside.
What do you see at 10 years now? Where do you see the fire in Allegheny County, fire departments in Allegheny County?
I'd like to see something better, and I don't mean that negatively from the standpoint. I know everybody's out there doing their best, but I think the fire service is evolving, and it just has to, where you're going to have more staffing, whether it's staffed fire stations with stipend people, it's part-timers or a part-timer or one full-timer. I think you're going to see in many communities, especially your larger, wealthier communities, paid fire chiefs. I mean, I don't envy volunteer fire chiefs. There's no way you get me to be a volunteer fire chief. But what I see from volunteer fire chiefs is they're all well-meaning. They are great individuals, but they're trying to do a 40-hour-a-week job in the 8 hours that they have available.
if that?
Right. And so, oftentimes they do a great job at training and preparing to go to calls, but all those other things that, Dan had mentioned, all the characteristics are required of fire chief nowadays. Marketing your department, talking to elected officials, getting money, being a leader, bringing people together. That all gets missed. And I think communities are starting to realize that in order to rein this in, I always say the bad thing, the volunteer fire departments want more money, which I'm all for giving them more money, but always understand with more money comes more accountability. The more tax money you take, the more accountability there's going to be. So government's going to get more involved. They're going to get their foot in more firehouses, and they're going to take more control. There was that act of 2000, I think it was Act 2 of 2007. It's House Bills 1131, 33, 34. But the fire service pushed for those to say in the bill that local government is responsible for delivering fire protection. So it says that in the law, PA law now. I think they wanted that to get more money, to say, hey, give us more money. But they didn't want the accountability, and they didn't understand the accountability that came with it. And I think that roost is starting to come home. He's coming home. The roost is local governments are getting wise to what's going on out there. And I always say this: we've had some very successful mergers and consolidations. They're much better when they're fire department driven. So when the fire departments sit down, and even in communities I've seen where work where you have 4 volunteer fire departments, it's just 2 of them. Say, hey, we're kind of over on this side, and we're both struggling a little bit. Why don't we get together and do something? And it doesn't always mean CLOTUS and fire stations too. I'm doing one right now. We just started. There's 4 fire stations, and quite honestly, it needs 4 fire stations. When we talk about run cards, we'll talk about distribution and concentration.
Square miles was.
Yeah, it needs 4 fire stations. You're not going to close fire stations necessarily. So the benefits. I had a young lady, which really kind of struck me the other night, and I never thought of this, but in talking to these 4 fire departments, she was the president of a department, and she said, I feel beat down. She says, we're struggling for members. There aren't a lot of people here. The people that we do have, life happen. They have some lieutenants, and they got to go to the kids' ball games. It's nobody's fault. She's like, but I paid $100 to a babysitter so I could come here for 5 hours and get my president's work done.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's dedication.
that's dedication.
Yeah.
But is that something someone should have to do?
No.
So even you're thinking, hey, if you could merge these 4 departments, you don't need 4 presidents, you need 1. And so it takes the burden. It takes the burden off of all these positions you're trying to fill. So there's a lot of little things that you can find advantages in. And so I always tell people, if you're thinking about this, because we'll always go in and we'll put disadvantages and advantages on the board, and generally at the end of the day, disadvantages are all emotional, my ego, and the advantages list is way larger.
It's solid things.
Yeah, it's just taking that step.
Right.
You need to see that.
Where I work, and it would be a little easier for us because we could actually the city could just hire 3 and say, okay, now you're going to take care of, you're going to be on an engine company, and we're at whatever community. I don't want to say a name, but any community.
Correct.
And it wouldn't even be, we would just contract that.
That's correct.
You know what I mean? Like the police do now.
So I've been thinking about something where that's been successful. I mean, it's changed a little bit up in Mill Creek Township near Erie. I did some work up there for them. And for the longest time, the West Ridge Fire Department had what they called IRT, Incident Response Team, but they were part-timers. And they hired a bunch of them. They always had their 3 a day for West Ridge, but they would subcontract them. 3 of them go down to Kane, 3 of them go over here, 3 of them. And so you would just pay West Ridge maybe just a little bit more, but whatever it cost, and they were there and they managed the entire program. And I absolutely see that as being a viable option.
Absolutely. I mean, because I don't want to take away anybody's fire department, but we're there to help.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can still maintain your organization. We're just there to give you a little boost. Right. And that's what these communities need right now, just a little boost.
Yeah.
That's sort of somewhat like Maryland does.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that, I don't know if it's Montgomery, the PG model. If you look at it, the operational part of the fire department is run by the city. Okay. So the fire chief, the officers, the apparatus, the full-time firefighters. The administrative portion is still run by all the independent volunteer fire companies. They're still all independent volunteer fire companies. So that's another solution, is you can give off the administrative side and run it and be independent, but you're operationally a part of this.
They're a pretty large department too.
There's some
over
large
2,000
do that,
uniform. Yeah. I think PG's over 2,000 uniform firefighters.
Yeah.
Career.
And I think people, when you're talking mergers and consolidations, especially when it's government driven, they're trying to get rid of us. I don't think anybody in their right mind ever wants to get rid of a volunteer.
No.
I mean, I sit there as somebody, hey, if I'm representing government, thinking you're cheap labor. I mean, we should help you more, but why would I want to get rid of you? And you don't want to chase volunteers away. I mean, I hate to think of many places that I go, if I was still volunteering, if someone took that opportunity away from me. I mean, it's been my life. I love being a fireman. And why would you take that opportunity away from somebody that still wants to do it? So
exactly.
I don't think that's a bigger threat. We want to get rid of volunteers and take them over. There has to be a better way to support volunteer organizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just curious, and I think you both can speak to this. But what does the IAFF think about combination departments like that, where volunteers are coming in?
So and again, I'm not going to speak for the IAFF. I'm the former union president of Local 10. They used to have a hard line. It was a hard line. It was, if you were a career firefighter and you were an IAFF car carrying member, you did not volunteer. You did not work part-time anywhere. So technically, by their bylaws, I couldn't work when I was working as a cop part-time and doing fire full-time. It was technically not allowed, but what they did was they let the local govern that bylaw. So if they had a member who worked in multiple different places, which we have, I'd say the majority of our guys now, because we have a part-time program, majority of our guys now all have 2-3 jobs. They just go from one to another.
Right. And I think you see that with the city of Pittsburgh too, since they've had to open up their borders, is these career firefighters are moving into communities and they're getting involved in their community if they have the time in a volunteer department. I mean, the real issue with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the IFF it was more heart and lung related and workers' comp related, because if I'm volunteering and I'm an IF member and you get cancer, well, where did you get cancer? Where you got hurt? Where did you get hurt, on their workers' comp or our workers' comp?
It became an issue.
That was really the issue.
It did become an issue when my deputy chief was diagnosed with brain cancer, and they go back, Pennsylvania has cancer presumption. But what they have is they have rebuttable cancer presumption. So it's just not, you got cancer, here's a check.
Right.
You know, you have to actually prove it.
Yeah.
So what happens in the volunteer world is, you know, you might be on a construction job working with asbestos. And
Right.
you know what I mean? And those doctors are going to want to know, and they're going to want to pinpoint what cancer you have and attribute it to something that happened in the fire service.
It's all about who's going to pay.
Right. And when you muddy the water, because volunteer fire departments are eligible for cancer presumption, it's just a lot harder hurdle to get over. I was lucky enough that, you know, not lucky enough, because God bless my deputy, one of my best friends. He didn't work anywhere else. So he only worked at McKeesport. So it was not that hard of a process. But sorry, we got off on that.
Oh, that's right. As far as news stories this week, I didn't have a lot of news stories, but I did want to touch base on one. 6-year-old volunteer firefighter Raymond Ray Monroe died this past week. He was on a fire call at 6:20 in the morning, and it's sort of unclear exactly what happened, but the medical examiner said he died from blunt force trauma to his head, neck, torso, and extremities. The news story saying something broke off a fire engine and hit him. So I looked online today to try to find a little bit more. I heard from actually our fire chief, Jim Rush, said that he had seen something online that possibly was a hose line, which would make sense, that either got run over or broke apart somehow. But our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family and his brother firefighters.
Yeah, God bless him.
But it reminds me of a time I remember me and you were down in I can't even think what business it was, but we're hooking up the hydrant for some reason, and I think you just got done telling me about. I was like newer, and you were telling me not to stand in front of the hydrant when you charge it.
The butterfly valve.
Yeah, and it blew off.
It went probably 35 feet in the air.
And had I been standing in front of that, both my legs would have been broken from it.
It was pretty neat. It was flying pretty far.
Yeah. So I think maybe we're ready to pivot into rent cards.
Sure.
All right. So I just wanted to start the conversation off. Obviously, last week we talked a little bit about rent cards, and actually before we even get into that, I seen one comment from our friend Nick Sohyda, but he was asking about what are our thoughts on self-dispatching fire departments. I'm thinking maybe he's talking about bidding calls. I don't know exactly.
I think we touched on that last week a little bit, but I'm sure maybe this will come up.
Let's get your thought on
in the run card.
Can I plead the fifth?
You can. We can just go right into rent cards if you want.
All right.
You know, I always say this, look, we're all our individuals. We all have different opinions. Sometimes I think I'm an old crabby guy now, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I am wrong. I mean, I'm sure if I sat down with somebody and explained to me, a lot of things I always try to, I don't understand them. And I'm like, I probably wouldn't do that because I have a lot of questions. And I always say, hey, if you're able to answer a lot of these questions, you've asked yourself a lot of these same questions about what if this and what if that and what if that happens, and you're confident, we all don't. I think there's again, this is probably going down the same slippery slope. I think there's some people that think we all need to do things the same way or their way is the right way. And I think the fire service is so diverse. Even in Western Pennsylvania, across our communities, how we're staffed, how many volunteers show up. It's hard to say this is the only right way. I think if it works for you and it works for the people that you're working with, go for it. Who am I? I'm not the fire police per se.
Right.
It's not my role to govern that kind of stuff. I just hope they ask themselves the questions and look at the pitfalls and the positives, and the positives outweigh the pitfalls, and it's working for them. And
my thing is with that, and I think we spoke about this last week, was why aren't you calling?
Yeah.
Well, right. And so when we get into run cards, I mean, as we get there, and you're making decisions, I absolutely believe that a part of the argument is you have to take staffed companies into account. We had this conversation before we started. If I'm looking at who's around me, I realize that we captured a ton of data at Mount Lebanon. Our goal was to be out the door 80 seconds or less 90% of the time. One year we were like 95% of the time, 80 seconds or less. So if you're figuring it takes the average volunteer department 4 minutes to get out, they've already made up 2 miles of that trip. So they may be to your incident faster, they may be in your jurisdiction faster. Those are just things I think you should consider, at least when you're making those run cards. Are companies staffed? because, I always said the difference between career and volunteers, the career departments, we get there faster. That's the difference. I went to fires in Mount Lebanon first year. I'm like, well, these fires are all small. I'm like, this kind of sucks. Well, the reality was we're out the door in 80 seconds and we have a 3-minute drop, and we were getting everything while it's small. I mean,
Right.
And so you do want to catch it there. They say people's lives shouldn't have borders. They shouldn't, so
In this circumstance, yes.
make your decisions, whatever you're doing, based on what's best for people's lives. I don't get, the buddy box or whatever you want to call it. I don't get, hey, we don't call these people next door because we don't like them. I mean, I just don't know how you justify.
Yeah.
Is that bad? Can you sit in a court of law and justify that was best for the resident that was in distress? As long as you can do that, great. But you're going to be hard pressed to do that. I don't even want to be put in that situation. I read that, thinking about this today. You might have seen the article from Goose Creek, Texas. So there's a career department, there's a volunteer department. The volunteer department has had 2 fatal fires in the last year. One was 1 mile from the paid department. The other was, 3 miles from the paid department. The paid department never got called. These people have died. And so, you're really saying, hey, should have you called them, not called them? The volunteer chief says, yeah, I'll justify that. I don't want to have that conversation. So I'm going to call the closest companies. I'm going to call the companies that are staffed. I'm going to be able to sit in a court of law, no matter what I'm doing, and say, this is a good, valid reason for why I did or did not call somebody. And hopefully 12 jurors are going to agree with me. And so that's how I think about the bigger picture of determining who's on that run card. But we certainly need to consider staff companies. I mean, I can tell you where I'm at now in Upper St. Clair. We're out now. I don't always have 4. We'd like to have 4, but there's usually at least 2 or 3 of us. We're waiting for 1 volunteer. It might take a minute and a half. We're out that door so much faster during the day when we have staffing in the staffing program than we are in the evening. And it makes a positive impact for our residents, but for our mutual aid too. We're there to lay your line faster, do truck work free, whatever you want.
Right.
So they shouldn't have borders, and we shouldn't have these conversations about why we didn't call somebody after the fact. Now, I always love this Chief Brunacini saying. Chief Brunacini says you can fool the spectators, which is the general public, but you can't fool the players. And you see when one of these incidents occurs, if people don't get called, all the firemen on the keyboard, right, wrong, or indifference, and we're all having a conversation and questioning it. I don't want to have that. I don't want to have that conversation about an incident that I'm in charge of. I don't want to even have the conversation.
Nope. I don't even want it to be in my world.
Right.
To be honest with you. And speaking of that on my end, so you've got kind of unique where we have a career department that sits amongst a lot of volunteers. We're surrounded, obviously. And my city administration is completely 100% for us leaving to help other communities. So what I think is a lot of the other communities think that they're taken away from the city. Oh, now they have to call it overtime. And yes, we do. We have to call at least 1 or 2 guys, depending on how many we have on working that day, to backstaff an engine for a while they're on that run.
Right.
But the thing is, call us sooner than later. Right. We don't want to just stand around. We'll come in quick, and we'll put water on your fire, maybe help make a grab, whatever it may be. But we're not, the city of McKeesport, and I'm almost positive, does not want to take over any communities. We really just want to help.
And these communities. And if we go back to that, does that resident care what the borders are?
No.
That resident's in desperate need of
help.
help.
We just want to help.
They don't care what the border is. They just want a fire truck to show up in a quick manner.
I raised my right hand to give my life for the residents or the people traveling throughout my city.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
That's what we should be.
Right. It's not that hard. It's really not hard at all.
I mean, to be honest and blunt about it, I don't think a lot of departments are concerned about what, in that example, with Keysport's paying. I think a lot of those departments that border a paid department are concerned that the paid department's going to beat them there. It's going to make them look bad.
We're not looking for fame.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that's what I think a lot of those departments are looking at when they're building out those rent cards and that paid department's right
next door.
next
The last
door.
thing you want to do is make any look bad. I mean, none of us want to make anybody look bad. We're all in this together. I mean, and those are the same departments that are all volunteer that I'm calling. I need their help.
Right.
I need their help at certain times, so I don't know. I don't get it.
I say we come there for the first 10 minutes while all of your help comes that you normally call. And then if you don't want us there, just leave an avenue and I can get my rig out. You know what I mean? You don't even have to put me in your notes. I don't care.
What's your typical firefighter good for in a fire ground? 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes, send us home.
Right.
We're there to help you for the first.
And you're
20
going to
minutes.
have the 20, although you're going to have all the mutual aid companies coming in. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around the fact that someone wouldn't want to
Yeah.
get a quicker unit there with staffed not career, it shouldn't really doesn't matter, but staffed, trained, qualified firefighters. There's no question. They're getting off the rig. Every one of my guys is firefighter too. Most are paramedics, EMTs. I mean, we have a really diverse and strong fire department right now.
For the most part, like in your situation with Keysport, when you guys have a good fire, you're relying on those departments to help you out.
They help us every
You know,
fire.
your former
Every
example in
fire.
Mount Lebanon, when you guys had a good fire, you're relying on those outside departments,
Yeah,
the volunteer
absolutely.
departments to help you out. And one obviously probably isn't in the city of Pittsburgh because they got so many of their departments to help.
Right.
handle their
And that kind
general-
of leads into maybe the next conversation on run cards, like from an NFPA 1720 perspective. We'll just take the volunteer standard. So when I designed a run card, I did them all by considering staffing, because I had Dormont right next door. I mean, they have 5 guys Monday through Friday during the day. So
Oh,
considering,
really?
but they were only 3/4 of a mile away, so they were pretty close regardless. But considering staffing, I'd run the mileage to every firehouse, to pretty much the different districts. I had 10 zones in Mount Lebanon. So we call that. So there's two terms that's generally used. One is distribution, and distribution is the location of single source apparatus within a community, or basically fire stations. So if I was doing a consolidation study or merger study, I'd plot out the different fire stations. And in an ideal world, if we were to start from a clean slate, when there's no fire stations anywhere, engine companies would be distributed 3 to 4 miles away from one another. And it's all based on travel time. The ISO says you can travel 1.5 miles in 4 minutes.
Okay.
Now, a RAND study in New York said 1.92 miles. So that's why I kind of make it between 3 and 4 miles. Make them 4 miles apart. A ladder truck should be 2.5 miles distribution. So you're 5 to 6 minutes away from one another of those single sources. Because even though you're talking 1720, it goes back on, it still relies on 1710. That's where a lot of the research occurred, of the 4-minute travel time for an engine company. That's ideal. So you have this distribution. The next is concentration, and now we're talking mutual and automatic aid. So it's based on the concentration of resources, single resources that you need to meet your effective response force. So the NFPA will tell you for single-family dwelling fire, you need 15 people within 9 minutes, and you have different critical tasks. 2 on an attack line, 2 on a backup line, 2 searching, 4 for RID, an incident commander. So they've defined what critical tasking is for these incidents, and they've put a time to it. And so when I consider run cards, I'll sit back and say, okay, if I have a fire now, it was easy during the day at Mount Lebanon because I could turn out 14 people right now. But in the evening, when I had 3 firefighters riding the rig and Dormont has 1, how many companies do I need to call? And what's the best location for me to get 15 people there as quickly as possible? That was the goal. And then when you talk strip malls, it's 27, and you talk high rises, mid rises, it's 30, 36 people. So, I tell my people straight off, you got a fire in a mid rise, go to the 3rd alarm right away. Just hit the 3rd alarm. That's going to give us, I think there are 11 units. You say 9 units have 4 people, there's your 36 people. And then I'll have a little bit of a fudge factor in case we end up short. But I would always build our run cards based on location, staffing, what I'm trying to do from a concentration, effective response force assembly time. Because I mean, as an accredited agency in Mount Lebanon, we'd have to go every 5 years and sit before the accreditation board, and they would review and ask us about how we're performing. Now, we measure ourselves against 1710. I like 1710 better because it broke up. You had a minute of call handling time, 80 seconds of out the door time, 4 minutes of travel time, 7 minutes for the second due. And then if you add that up, it was like 10 minutes and 10.5 minutes for the assembly of 15
Your
people.
first alarm.
Right. Now, 1720, urban will tell you need 15 people in 9 minutes from the time of alarm. I bet anybody's hard pressed to meet that.
Right. Maybe Pittsburgh, right?
And what you'll find too, again, those are what they call benchmarks. That's where you'd like to perform. Hardly anybody performs at the benchmark. We didn't even perform at the benchmark. There's what they call gross deviation. So the term is 70% of the benchmark. So if I said you need to be there in 9 minutes, a gross deviation would be 11 minutes and 45 seconds. So my goal is 9 minutes all the time. I have a goal to strive for. But as long as I'm under that 11:45, I'm not a gross deviation. I'm still performing pretty well.
Not liable.
You're just always trying to improve that. So most people don't meet the standard. It's just a place to say, hey, let me start measuring myself against the standard. When I was working at a department up north earlier, we did a standard of cover document for them. And to be honest with you, we found out that they were probably going to get their first engine there in 9 minutes. That was what they were capable of.
Oh, wow.
Not 15 people, 4.
Just one rig.
4. Now they decided to hire tons of career folks in the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So Brian Pearson, I was looking at, I think he meant companies like Bethel and Upper St. Clair that aren't dispatched by county. I'm not sure if you know what you were talking about when you said something about, he said I think you meant companies like Bethel and Upper St. Clair that aren't dispatched by
I
county.
think he's talking about Nick Curtis' comment.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nick Curtis.
Oh, ring,
okay,
so they're
that makes
a ring
sense.
down.
Yeah,
They're a ring
Yeah,
down.
no,
right?
that certainly delays the process. I'll be honest with you. So back to being the fire chief of Mount Lebanon, those were 2 of my primary responders. And so when I look at the times, I pretty much knew that if someone's calling 911, and I've seen the dispatch center in action. It's incredible what those dispatchers do. But that call gets made, and it's easy to dispatch county departments. Now the supervisor would usually, you work there, the supervisor get on the phone and they'd have to call to Bethel, and the supervisors get on the phone and they call to St. Clair, and there's going to be inherently the system. It's not the dispatcher's fault, but one person's trying to answer the radio, answer the police officers, do the rest of this stuff. There was an easy 3-minute delay consistently. So you could absolutely factor that in. Now, one thing, and I know Chief Hell has worked very hard, is, and I don't think it's a secret anymore, is Upper St. Clair is transitioning to the county by September 1st. And
Nice.
we're really looking forward to that. And he worked really hard to get that done.
Good.
So, the NFPA standards under a minute for call processing.
It's under a minute for call processing. But to be honest with you, if you go across the country, there's probably 400 accredited departments. Nobody's processing calls. You know better than anybody. So when I first started that venture, I met with Chief Full.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Chief Full, this is the standard. What's realistic? I says, because we're not going to hold you to a minute, but tell me what's realistic. He said, well, I think 90 seconds to 240. So 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Now I could tell you, you look at some of the county call processing times, they're a little slower, but generally not on structure fires. When it's on fire, and that's what I care about. I don't care about the wire down the line. I cared about structure fires, how you're going to perform. And when it said structure fire, it was consistently, sometimes under a minute. Consistently under 1.5 minutes.
So, in an ideal world, obviously you're dealing with the callers usually hysterical at that point. Usually the toughest part for us when we're taking calls back, when I was there back then taking calls, is trying to verify an address with a hysterical caller, because obviously you got to get the address right. So that's the most important thing. But as long as you're getting that address right and the building's on fire, there should be no reason why it doesn't get in under a minute. And I used to work at a ring down center as a dispatcher too. Typically back then, when you're working as a ring down, as Gina knows, this is back in the day when he dispatched, you take the call and you get all the information, then you'd hang up, then you dispatch the call. Whereas the 911 environment, as soon as they're getting the address on the fire, that it's on fire, they're sending that call to a dispatcher who's dispatching it, and the call taker's still standing on the phone gathering more information. So obviously it's a more efficient process. And then the other aspect of it too is take the examples of some of those ring down centers out of the equation, but if you have a call that is all county dispatch agencies, they're all getting dispatched together. So it obviously is going to be more efficient that they're all getting dispatched together.
Yes, and there were communities, like Upper St. Clair, you think about it. Hey, if you have a fire, you got to call the county, then you got to call Bethel Park, then you got to call Washington County. And so there's just those delays. And so is that absolutely something worth considering when you're thinking about, sure, a company that's a little bit further away may make up that 3 minutes that I'm expecting it take for that call processing time.
Yeah. So
but again, you can justify those. I'm going to sit there if something goes wrong. I always said, hey, I'm looking at these incidents and certain fire departments don't get called. I'm one of the players. I'm not a spectator. And it's my loved one. We're going to court. And you're going to prove why you made the decision you did. As long as you got a good reason, but be prepared. Make those decisions with good information for good reasons in the best interest of the resident.
If you've never sat on a witness stand, it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
My years as a police officer, I was on that witness stand a lot, and that's the hot seat.
Yeah.
Especially with a good defense attorney, you're getting tore up, and you didn't even do anything wrong. There was sometimes I thought I did the crime by the time I left the witness stand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, and why would you want that liability?
Right. And unfortunately, I mean, the prosecution is going to hire some expert witness, and they're going to be a pretty high-powered person in the
Right.
fire service that's going to come testify against you.
And sometimes make you
And
look like
they're pretty smart. I mean, you might get the guy that's on the NFPA 1710 technical committee testifying. I mean, how much more of an
Right.
expert do you get than that? So,
right.
So thanks, Nick, for the initial question. Thanks for Brian for clarifying, because I misunderstood it at first. But we have another question here for you, Chief. The first alarm companies that fail and get filled affect your ratings scoring, meaning the lapse of time to hit the benchmark staffing numbers to on scene.
so let me read that.
So do first alarm companies that fail and get filled affect your rating or scoring?
People don't answer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not 100% sure I get the question, but if a company fails, then and they're consistently failing, then sure, they're gonna affect that. Like I had a measure, you know, if we went to a fire, we go back and listen to tapes. How long it took how long it took us to get out the door, how long the first unit travel time. I measured when 15 people were on scene. So I'd go back and say, Bethel showed up with 4, I had 8, Dormont had 3, St. Clair had 5. Now I got 15. When did St. Clair arrive? So if a company's scratching, then again, is that something that, here's what I would do. I mean, I've been through a lot of these run card games. I changed my run cards a lot. I did that. I really never cut anybody. If I thought I was having a department that wasn't performing, I would just add another company. So
Exactly what we said
I can
last
say that
time.
I at least called them.
Right.
Because, you know, sometimes those make bad relationships. And I think one thing we all realize in the volunteer fire service, a lot of fire departments do this. They're up and they're down. You know,
yeah.
People have things to do in their lives. Again, it's volunteer. And so you cut them one day and cause hard feelings. In 3 years, they're performing extremely well again, and they've recovered. I don't know. That's just me. I didn't want to cause hard feelings, so I wouldn't cut them off the run card generally. I would just add another company to cover for them.
For your reports, routine, like obviously not everyday calls, but for actual confirmed structure fires or good structure fires, do you get the staffing from
Yes,
every other department?
I absolutely go around and get the staffing. So that would affect accreditation, which doesn't apply to a lot of people, but that affects ISO. I get credit for anybody that's on automatic aid for ISO. So you'd see a guy generally when the call was kind of done, usually my assistant chief, he'd come around and say, Gino, how many guys do you have? And we'd ask whether they were on duty or off duty. So you get back to the staffing thing. If you're staffed in the firehouse or you're on duty as a career, you count as a firefighter, according to ISO. If you're a volunteer, not staff, not coming from home, you count as a third of a firefighter. So it's a little different. It's not NFPA the way they calculate them. So, you know, what I would tell you is this quickly. If most communities are required to have 3 engines in a truck, so that's 14 people, 4 people on a rig. That's 16 people, sorry.
Yeah.
What's 16 times 3?
I don't think my calculator.
Is it 48?
Yeah.
I need 48 volunteers to show up, either from my company or automatic aid to get to my staffing number. Whereas if I had 10 of those that are career, 10 of those that are staff, now I have 10. I only need 38. I start to play with that number, which helps me with an ISO rating. Now, is ISO that big of a deal? I don't think so. It's, you know, as long as you're a 5 or above, you know, this thing that we used to save people a lot of money, it doesn't hold a whole lot of water anymore. But I always like the ISO. I like the credit. I think they're a good third-party evaluation of how we're performing. And they will tell you that ISO communities with higher ISO ratings generally have less fire loss.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now you have a high ISO rating probably because you're a career department.
Yeah, we were 5. I think we're at 3 now.
Okay. And I think a 3 is a very good rating. You have a lot of loss. It's
Yeah.
not your fault.
No.
It's not
right.
your fault, but you have
Right.
a lot of loss to socioeconomics of the community. But
So I want to give another shout out to FireCam. They're our sponsor. And I want to remind everybody, if you sign up for X, if you subscribe to our X channel, you could be entered a chance to win their flashlight, which is the BJ1000, stands for Blackjack 1000 flashlight. It's 1,000 lumen. It goes on your helmet. They got the mount and everything. It's an awesome flashlight. So don't forget to subscribe on our X channel first, we're going to pick somebody from the first 200 subscribers to win that flashlight. So thanks again to FireCam for being our sponsor. So yeah, we're about an hour in. So Chief, any other topics you want to discuss?
Anything you guys want to discuss? We'll solve all the problems right here.
That's it. The
I
bay
think,
table,
I
right?
think we might have to schedule another episode.
Yeah.
With the Chief here. So yeah, Gino, you got any closing thoughts?
I don't, man. I just really appreciate you being here, and I'm listening. We're gonna have to do a continuation. You know what I mean?
That's
We
fine,
have-
man. I love hanging out with you.
yeah, and I'm just really glad you were here, man. I appreciate your
No,
time. It
not
really
a
does.
problem, man. I love talking to fire service. You know, I think everybody that's watching, and hopefully this show grows, is, hey, we're just committed to the fire service. You
That's
know, the
it.
Fire service. You know, my goal's always just been to make it better, and I hope I'm making it better. What you guys are doing, I think it's incredible. I only found out about this a couple of weeks ago. Again, I hope it grows because it's an opportunity to share different people's experience, different people's insight. It's an opportunity to improve the fire service, and I think that's what most of us just want to do.
That was,
Help
I think,
people.
our goal was to just bring another perspective to. There's lots of podcasts out
Right.
there, you know what I mean, and some of them are city specific and whatever. We're kind of bringing everything.
And you're bringing it here, though. You
Yeah,
know, what
but I meant
what's happening here,
Right.
And I think that's important.
I always say-
you used to go to FDIC, and I would tell
Yeah.
people I'd go to FDIC, I'd listen to John Norman from the FDNY, and you were just sitting there on the edge of your seat, and it was the greatest story, and he had the greatest videos, and there was really good music. But the reality is, I can't go back to Mount Lebanon and fight fire like they did in New York City. I'm not throwing 343 guys on the first alarm,
Right.
as much as I enjoyed it. So.
Some of the greatest people, John Norman, Tom Brennan. I would spend hours reading his articles, but nothing could.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You can't bring it back to
Right.
the key sport when you're running six
Yeah.
guys, you know, on duty.
Yeah.
And so it was great, but that's what I like about what you're trying to do is,
Well, like I
it's
said,
here, and how can we help the people here? You know, this is the Western Pennsylvania Fire Service.
I'm sitting right here, right now, 20 minutes away from this exact location is a multi-million-dollar house, and 20 minutes the other way are projects. So you really couldn't ask for a more diverse,
Oh yeah,
you know, communities, or however you want to say it, area,
some have
region.
money, some don't.
Absolutely.
Socioeconomics, volunteer departments, some have members, some don't. Staffing, equipment.
Yeah.
Some people show up during the day, not at night. It's just I think it's very challenging. I thought my job was very easy. I had resources, known resources that I knew were going to show up and what they were capable of. And, you know, in this volunteer system, again, not knocking it, I think it's incredible, but you have a bunch of unknowns. I think it would be very hard to be an incident commander. Well, you know, when I went to a fire in Mount Lebanon, I know, hey, the engine's coming, the Dormont's truck, and we're going to staff a second engine, and this engine's going to take approximately 3 or 4 minutes. And I knew what I had. When you're here saying, I don't know who's going to show up in what order, how many people they're going to have, how many people are capable. I mean, gosh, that's a tough job. I always said I think being a volunteer fire officer is way harder than being a career fire officer.
Dan, he did it for 20 plus years as the chief, and his personal life suffered greatly during those times. But guess what? He was the best fire chief that you could ever ask for, because he would know if you were at the open pantry at 2 a.m. or if you were, you know what I mean? Like he was our father in a way, you know?
Amen.
Yeah.
He might have came to my house once and knocked on the door when I slept through a call.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So it has been a lot of fun.
We should go
Thank
grab
you
a
guys.
beer,
I'm-
man.
Yeah, I think
I'm
like
humbled.
we're talking. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why we started this. And my intention to this too is like I see so many comments that you were talking about before on Facebook, and I always find this interesting that you don't see any other profession do this. You don't see the police officers do that. You don't see the medics get on there and bash each other about the calls. But it's like the volunteer firefighters, like we do that all the time. Like we
Or
bash
worst enemy.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. Like, and I get the conversation, but I want to sort of had an outlet to start the conversation, but in a positive light, to think of solutions as opposed to
Yeah,
just
why can't we sit
scenario.
down and have a civil conversation?
Right.
And, you know, help me better understand your point of view and you understand my point of view, and maybe we can merge those, or you could bring me over to your side. But that's what I mean. Obviously, this is a great platform for social media to do this, to get your message out. But that's what I just hate about social media in general. It's you can just plop something on there. Maybe you didn't even mean to say it that way. You plop something on there.
Oh yeah, clip it. Or
You know, and then the argument says, well, this isn't. You don't really get that person's story. It's just it's a comment, or this, hey, this is how I feel at the moment. I'd really like to know why. That's what I always wanted to know. You know, I saw a great thing, and if you watch or see this, you'll probably fall asleep. But the guys from Grit posted today, and did you see it about 1.5 hose?
Who posted Grit?
Grit.
Oh, okay, no,
So
I
they
didn't
posted
see it.
about 1.5 hose, and you would, on the surface, you would sit there and say, well, that's crazy. We're going backwards. You know, we've gone to 1.75 and 1.5 hose. But when you really look at it and you think about it, you know, what was the difference? We used to have 100 PSI nozzles. Now we have these 50 PSI, 150 PSI nozzles. Hose technology is so good. You know, the 1.5 slider. I don't know that I'm 100% on board, but I see it. I can see I can see what they're trying to
Technology
sell.
has advanced the
and
1.5
that's why
line, right?
I'd love to sit and have a conversation, but sometimes just what you post on the internet, it doesn't come out right, or you don't get the conversation, or you don't have the understanding. But I'm like, yeah, I get that. I can see where they're coming from.
Do you know what Grit fire training is?
No.
So it was started by a bunch of guys from around here. Brett Greenlee from Carroll Township. And I would,
Right, and he knows hose and nozzles like
absolutely.
anybody.
He was born and raised in it. His father sold fire apparatus or fire equipment his whole life, and he's just been around the fire service just like all of us. His kids since we were kids. But Brett, I wouldn't mind maybe reaching out to them and getting that crew together, maybe on a call in, because they're a bunch of young,
They are
aggressive, forward-thinking fire instructors. They started their own little thing,
right.
and
If they can make an argument to go back to 3.5-inch supply line, I'm all for it. I hate 5-inch.
Yes, and you know, hey, the reality is, you know, I think a lot of instructors, when you've been in this instructor world, there's a lot of jealousy.
oh yeah,
Hey, I'm not the future of the fire service.
No.
I mean, I'm at towards the end. I mean, we need these guys
absolutely.
to
I
carry-
love
to
watching
carry-
their videos.
to carry it forward.
I don't know any of the other, but the only person I really know personally is Brett, and
But they put a lot of stuff up there. But I saw that today, and on the face, I'm like, if there had been no comment or anything, I'm like, 1.5 hose, that's going backwards. Why are we doing it? We've done all this, and then, you know, there's a little bit of somebody comments, basically what I'm saying,
right.
and then a little bit more comes out, and then you're like, yeah, I can see where this could have value. For a lot of different departments, and it's being able to see the conversation as opposed to just what's written online.
Well, let's keep it going. We'll get, I think we definitely need to get you back on the show at some point. Gino, any final thoughts?
Thank you, brother. It's always good to see you.
Want to say your line?
As well.
Oh yeah. Everybody, take care of yourselves this week and just try not to suck. It's
All right.
that easy.
See everybody next week at 7 p.m. Thanks a lot for joining.